Well, hey friends, thank you so much for stopping by our channel today. What you're about to listen to is the most recent sermon preached and recorded live during a weekend service here at Chapel Springs Church. I invite you to subscribe to this channel right now. Head on over to our website, chapelsprings.org, for more information, and also check us out on social media. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you next time.
Well, good morning, Chapel Springs. If you don't know me, my name is Joshua. I'm the pastor of discipleship and missions here, and it is a joy to be with you this morning. It is exciting as we continue through our summer sermon series, as the days continue to get warmer, as we get excited for the sunshine that is outside, as all the things are happening around us, and we also recognize that today is a special day. It's Father's Day, and so we celebrate fathers. Thank you. It's also summer solstice. I don't know if you knew this, okay? Today is the longest day of the year, and many of you, as you look at me up here with this microphone, you're like, yeah, I bet it is going to be. Sorry for that. It's also a big sporting events weekend. If you've been following along, it is the U.S. Open, right? Everybody's been watching golf all weekend. Yeah, there's two of you. Thank you, yeah. And this morning what we're going to do is we're going to continue in our Ruth series. We've been traveling through the book of Ruth over the last few weeks. This is a 4-chapter book in the Old Testament. It is a small story with a great big impact. It's one of the best stories ever written as we see the tangible lives of 3 different characters, as we see Naomi, as we see the life of Ruth and the life of Boaz, and we see how redemption plays out in the margins. And this story has been one that's been full of heartache and grief and hardship and seeing how God interacts with his people in the normalness of their lives, in the ordinary parts of their lives. And we realize that sometimes that redemption comes from the margins. It comes from the outside places. It comes from the places that we least expect. We know that this story is going to be one of great love and redemption. And so each week we've been longing for what is going to be the next step. What's going to be happening next, and the narrator has continued to take us on this journey to see what would happen next. And this morning we're going to be in Ruth chapter 3. But before we get there, I'm going to ask you a question as we think about what matters the most in our world today. Okay, some of you are employers, and so you are part of the hiring process, and so you do interviews and you meet with candidates, and some of you, as you think about the qualities of other people in your lives, what is the most important quality? What is the most important thing that people have? Okay, when we're thinking through these things, okay? It's maybe it is their competence, okay? As we think about, I'm thinking about bringing this person on my team, or I'm thinking about having this person in my life, okay? I want them to be a competent person. I want them to be able to know how to do the thing that I'm asking them to do. And so maybe competence is the most important thing. But then we realize, okay, yes, they do have to be competent, but we can also teach them skills. Okay, skills can be acquired over time, and we can show people how to do things. And so maybe competence, though important, is not the most important thing. Okay, maybe it is chemistry. Okay, it's how we get along with them, right? We want to work on a team with people that we enjoy. We like it when we think the same way about things. Like chemistry is a really important quality when we think about our teammates. We think about those around us. But then we realize, we're adults, right? We don't all have to agree on things all the time. We can find a way to work together towards a common good, even if we don't always agree on everything. And so maybe it's not chemistry. Maybe it's capacity, right? Okay, I want them to be able to do the things that I'm asked them to do, right? This competence, I want them to be able to handle all of the things that are going to come their way. And so their capacity needs to be great. But then we think about it a little bit more, we're I realize when I started at my first job, my capacity grew over time. And many of you've seen this in your own lives, your capacity has continued to grow, and the things that used to take you twice as long now take you half as long, right, as you've understood how to do them, and so your capacity continues to grow. So if it's not any of those C's, what is it? What is the most important thing? And I would submit to you this morning, maybe it is your character. The stuff that has been built over time, the part of us that defines who we are, and who we are when no one is watching. As we turn to Ruth chapter 3, we're going to discover that character matters for us today, and it mattered to the people of God then. And as you turn to Ruth chapter 3, let me catch you up a little bit on the story about what has happened over the last few weeks. Okay, our story started with Naomi and Elimelech. Okay, Naomi's name means pleasant, and so her and Elimelech have a great life, but then famine strikes the people of God, and so they leave Bethlehem and they go to the land of Moab. They take their sons Mahlon and Chilion, and as they're in the land of Moab, the two boys take wives, Orpah and Ruth. Okay, as we turn the page, we realize that, within a few verses, all three of the men die and the women are left to be able to try to provide for themselves. A very difficult thing in the world in which they lived in. In the ancient Near Eastern society, this would have been almost impossible for these women to have protection, for them to have provision, and for them to have security. And so they're left wondering, what is the way forward? They hear that the famine has been lifted in Bethlehem, and Naomi and Ruth decide to go back the road that Naomi has already come down once, and they go back to the people of God. Naomi changes her name to Mara because it has now become bitter for her. Life is difficult. Life is unpleasant, but they arrive at Bethlehem at the time of the barley harvest. The narrator is telling us that there is going to be a way forward for them. There is hope that will arise. There is going to be great provision for these people that we have been hearing about their story. And so Ruth goes to the field of Boaz and she gleans, okay? She takes a part of the Old Testament law, which says that you must leave the edges of your field, the margins of your field, in order that the widowed, the orphaned, and the fatherless may be provided for. And so Ruth in this moment is gathering all of these things and she's bringing them back to her and Naomi, and life is good, life is going well. But then we as the audience are left to wonder, what is going to happen at the end of the barley harvest? What will happen when they're no longer gathering those crops? What is going to happen to these two? And that is where we pick up in our story this morning. We're going to begin reading in verse 1. It says, "One day Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her, 'My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do.'" All right, put your seatbelts on, church. There's going to be a lot for us to cover this morning in order for us to have an understanding of what is happening in our text. As we come to it as outsiders, as we try to step into that culture and see what was happening in that time and space, to understand what Naomi and Ruth, what is the plan in which they are scheming or coming up with in order to move this narrative forward. It's important for us to realize that in this moment, that as Naomi looks at Ruth, she calls her her daughter. She's no longer her daughter-in-law, but instead she uses a term of endearment to speak of her as her daughter. And we remember back to Ruth's words that I will be with you, Naomi, that wherever you go, I will go, that your God will be my God, and that I will be with you no matter what. And this type of commitment that these two women have had with one another has built a vulnerability, has built a connection with each other, and that they have gone through this life together. And church, let me just say from the outset that we need people like this in our lives. We need people that have been with it, they have been through the ups and downs with us, and they can help us on our journey. We need people who know us so well, who know the ins and outs of our lives, that know the good and the bad, and can be able to speak truth and be able to encourage us to what the next logical step is. Our narrator opens the passage with one day. It's saying that in this sense, like as the story is continuing to unfold, one day there came a time where something needed to happen, where the next step needed to happen, and Naomi is planning this in order to help Ruth in her life, to see her be able to be provided for, to see her to be able to be protected and to see her have security. And what we know from this time period is the only way that that will happen for Ruth is if she finds a husband. Now, if you've been paying attention throughout the story, we realize and we know that who we want that husband to be is Boaz, okay? The narrator has been leaving clues for us along the way, and Naomi here in this moment is also telling her, it's going to be Boaz, we're going to make this happen, and so let's find a way for this to happen. Naomi tells Ruth, wash, put on perfume, and put on your best clothes. Now, this is important for us as we stand as outsiders, because what it speaks to us in this moment is as we look back over the last 10 years, as we look at over the last 6 weeks of Ruth's life, as she's been gleaning in the field of Boaz, is that we realize that she was probably still wearing the clothes of a mourner. Ruth is probably covered head to toe in black, and she is probably still actively grieving the loss of her late husband. Now, what we know is that grief never leaves us, right? Like, we have to find ways in order to cope with our grief. We find ways to live with our grief, and there are moments where grief becomes harder or more real in our moments as we think about those in which we have lost in our lives. And Ruth is going through this process, and Naomi says, it is time for you to put away those clothes, and it's time for you to change, get dressed, put on your best clothes, and let's go out and let's meet Boaz in this moment. Now, in our text, the type of clothes to which Naomi is telling Ruth to wear are ones in which Ruth would have been covered head to toe, and it also would have been enough left over for her to be able to use it as a blanket. This is going to be important as Ruth is going to go off into the cold of night. This was a very common outfit for poor Israelite women to wear. So Ruth, though she is a Moabite, is coming into the Israelite customs, and she is now going to put on this type of clothes in order to go out in the middle of the night in order to meet Boaz. She's going to go into the cover of darkness. Now, it should be noted, this is a little bit dangerous for Ruth, for her to go in this moment to the threshing floor. Now, the threshing floor would have been where all the men would have gathered at the end of the harvest time. They would have gathered it all together. They would have brought it down, and this would have been the place where they would have winnowed it in order to get the grain out of the barley. Now, what would happen at the end of this time, it would have been a day of very hard labor as they are celebrating also the fruit of their labor. They would have gathered it all in a pile, and the men would have slept out by the pile that night in order to protect the fruits of their labor. That way no one could come in and steal it. That way the wind wouldn't blow it away, but they would instead be near it. And so this is the moment in which Ruth, in a society that does not allow men and women to interact very much, would have shown up in the middle of the night in darkness and to go enter this. And so this could be a very dangerous situation for Ruth to put herself in. And so let's see how she responds to Naomi's plan. Verse 5 says that, I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So here we see the commitment to which Ruth has to Naomi, and the commitment to which we remember back in chapter 1 that no matter what, like, we are in this together. The trust, the vulnerability, the commitment that they have to one another is confessed here again. I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. Now, of course, this would be very startling, right? Like in this moment where you have worked so hard the day before, it's been hard labor, you've eaten a big meal, you've celebrated, and then you lay down, and in the middle of the night, you wake up, and there is a woman there. Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, now look, the text says that he was startled. Okay, it could also say that he shivered. And this makes sense, right? Because his feet are uncovered, okay? Now, how many of you in the middle of the night, as the covers move in a way in which you don't like them to, you find yourself waking up? And you're like, whoa, this is not the way it's supposed to be. And so you rearrange, you get things back to the way they're supposed to be. And Boaz, probably in this moment, is going through something like that. Now also, I know that amongst us, there are a lot of different ways in which we wake up in the middle of the night. Some of you, you'll wake up in the middle of the night because something will happen and you will never remember that thing happening again. Others of you, you'll wake up in the middle of the night because you hear a noise, because a kid is asking for something, because of something else, and you will never go back to sleep again. Okay? And like we have all these different experiences, but we know that oftentimes in the middle of the night when we're startled, when we wake up, we're not always... we don't always have our best foots forward, right? We're not always exactly ready for what is happening. We're not expecting anything to happen in the middle of the night. Boaz for sure is not expecting it, and so it startles him. And we, as the audience, are wondering, how is Boaz going to respond to this? Now, before we see how Boaz responds, I just want to take a moment and talk a little bit about the words the text is using. It says that she uncovers his feet, and it says that she lies down. Now, some of you have grown up in church or grown up around church to where it's been explained to you, or maybe you've heard it explained to you, that this is a euphemism that the text is using. I can tell you that there is no evidence in the text or outside of the text that that is what is happening in this moment. That Naomi, when she tells Ruth to get dressed in her best clothes, she is not telling her to put on her most risque outfit. When Ruth shows up in the middle of the night, the text doesn't tell us that she even laid down at his feet at this moment. She lays down, she uncovers his feet in order that he would wake up. The narrator the whole way along has been telling us about Boaz's noble character. Naomi would have known it. Everyone else knew it. So the story is unfolding just as the narrator, just as we would expect as we realize who Boaz is and what type of person that he is. And then we find it even more as our text continues. So let's continue reading. There's a woman lying at his feet, and we're in verse 9. It says, "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." Boaz asks Ruth, "Who are you?" Remember, it's dark. It's the middle of the night. He's been startled. He's been shivering. Why are his feet uncovered? He's trying to, oh my gosh, it is so cold. What is going on out here? Who are you? And she says, "I am Ruth, your servant." And then she says something. She says, "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." Now, in this moment, it's foreign to us in the world in which we live, but in the world in which Boaz lived, what he just heard was Ruth looked at him and said, "Will you marry me?" Ruth is proposing in the middle of the night to Boaz. She is taking the initiative of this moment. She has put away the clothes of a mourner. She is now dressed nicely, and she says, "Will you marry me?" In the society in which they live, they would say that, "Would you cover me with your wing? Would you spread your cloak over me?" This would have been very common language. It would have been very clear to Boaz, even in the middle of the night, that Ruth was proposing to him. And she says, "You are a guardian redeemer of our family." Now, Pastor Bernice told us what this law was in an understanding of the Levitical tradition, is that as a brother would pass away, there would then be someone else in that family that would help carry on the familial line. And Boaz is in the family, and Ruth, though she is an outsider, though she is a Moabite, she understands Israelite law and custom. For sure, her and Naomi have talked about it. What is the way forward for us? What is this going to look like? How are we going to survive? Where will we get provision? What will security look like for us? And she says, "You are a guardian redeemer of our family. Will you marry me?" And now we as the audience are on the edge of our seats, like, what is Boaz going to say? How would I respond in the middle of the night if I was proposed to? Like, what is this going to look like? Everything is like spinning around, but this is the moment we've been longing for. What's going to happen? Let's read on and see. In verse 10, Boaz says, "The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor, and now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am in fact a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good, let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning." Boaz says yes. Well, kind of, okay? Boaz says, yes, I do want to do this, but, okay, yes, you are right. I am a guardian redeemer. That is a great understanding of the way in which it works in our family, but there is someone who is closer than I. And everything we've learned about Boaz to this moment is that Boaz is a person of great character. He's a person of noble character. And so Boaz says, I want to do everything above board. There is someone who is supposed to be closer. And so it is right and good for us to ask him first. Now remember, the question that he's going to be asking is that, will you redeem Ruth and her family? This is not just a simple transaction, but instead it is one that's going to be very costly. There's going to be more mouths to feed. There's going to be land that is going to be taken care of. And it's not just a net gain, but it's something that is going to cost this family and probably cost them dearly. And Boaz says, but if he doesn't do it, then I will do it. And then Boaz says this moment, he says that everyone in town, Ruth, knows that you are a woman of noble character. And isn't it interesting that here we see this Moabitess, this woman from Moab who has now come back with Naomi. Not only does Boaz know that she's a person of noble character in his interactions with her as she is gleaned in his field, but also the whole town has been talking about it. The whole town has noticed her good character. So now the narrator has brought us to this point where we have our two of our three people in the story, and we are introduced to them both as people of noble character. It's been known about Boaz from his fellow kinsmen, from those in which he works with, for those that he employs, for those that he will be at the city gates with. And it is known about Ruth. And as we read this story, there's a lot of responses that could have happened in the middle of the night, but we know now what the narrator has been leading us to this whole time is that nothing nefarious was going to happen because these were always two people of great character. That Ruth and Boaz could be trusted. That Ruth and Boaz were trustworthy and that they were people of noble character. There was nothing sinister in the approach to which Ruth made to Boaz, because when Boaz wakes up, he says, "The Lord bless you." Like, this is great news. This is amazing. The story is moving forward. And then he looks at her and he says, "Lie here until morning." Now, you and I both know that in this moment, after they've woken up in the middle of the night, they've had this really intense conversation. There's been a proposal. There's been an acceptance. Well, kind of, but then we'll wait until the morning. They probably didn't sleep very much that night, right? Like Ruth is laying there and thinking, my life has changed. Like, everything that I thought was going to happen is now not going to happen. The provision that we've been longing for is now, he's right over here, and this is going to be fantastic news for our family. And Boaz is like, man, this is awesome. A woman of noble character has now proposed to me. And like, well, there's this other guy, and I got to figure out how to talk to him tomorrow. And when will I see him? Or where will I see him? Or what should I say to him? And you can't imagine that they probably didn't sleep very much that night. As these ideas and thoughts kind of rolled through their head. And our text continues. It says, "So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, 'No one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor.' He also said, 'Bring me the shawl that you're wearing and hold it out.' When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. Then he went back into town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law Naomi asked her, 'How did it go, my daughter?' Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, He gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.' Then Naomi said, 'Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today.'" Now, we've said in our text, right, like we imagine that Ruth and Boaz didn't sleep very much. I also imagine Naomi didn't sleep very much that night either. And she sent her daughter off into the darkness, and she sent her off to see what would happen, to see how the story would move forward, to see how the redemptive arc would play itself out. And she doesn't have the benefit of having Find My Friends like we do, right? She can't follow her location. She's wandering. And then you can see her sitting at the table the next morning waiting for Ruth to come home. And Ruth comes home, and she not only comes home with a great story, but she also comes home with 6 loads of barley, of grain. And this thing to which Boaz and his men have slept out at night to protect, he gives generously to Ruth and Naomi. In the same way that he has given generously over and over again of the edges of his field to those who are fatherless, those who are widowed, and those who are the foreigner. And Boaz continues to show his noble character in this moment as he gives generously to this family who has no way to provide for themselves. And then Naomi says, "This is great news, Ruth, and don't even worry about it. This is all going to be settled by the end of today." Unfortunately, Chapel Springs, it will not be settled for us this morning. We're going to be left with another cliffhanger this morning, okay? We're now wondering, Boaz is out. He's headed to town. He's trying to figure out what's the way forward and to talk to the other guardian redeemer. But you're going to have to wait until next week to find out how that plays out, okay? And so, we now, in this moment in the text, we kind of lean in and say, how did we get here? What does this look like? And what is the way in which this redemption story is going to play out in our lives? And I want to take a few moments as we get to the end of our message this morning and our time together and talk about the idea of Ruth and Boaz being people of noble character. It's often said that character is who you are when no one is around, when no one is looking. But I think it's probably better stated that character is who you are, period, full stop. It comes out when you are with people. It comes out when you are not with people. And the way in which we interact with those people around us, those who are closest to us, and also those who are farthest from us, those who see us from a distance, those who we work with, those who we live around, those who we interact with, that our character is often on full display. And I think that we, as the people of God, need to think about what it would mean for us to be people of noble character. A noble character means that we can be trusted, that we are true. And I think that there are a lot of different ways in which this plays out in our lives, where we try to see how will our character be shown. Will we be people of noble character? Because remember, character is kind of a neutral term. You can have bad character, or you can have noble character. And we as the people of God don't want to just have character. We want to have noble character. And so, how are we in the different areas of our lives? Are we seen as people who are noble when we interact with people face to face? Do we have good character as we meet strangers, as we meet foreigners, as we go to work, as we pay our bills, as we hang out with our neighbors? And then do we have that same noble character when we interact with things on a screen? Are we the same person in person as we are online? And we think through the things that we post in social media, on comment sections. Are we the same person in person as we are in comment sections? Are we the same person in person as we are in people's direct messages? Are the direct messages that we're sending that we don't believe that anyone will ever see, are they showing that we have noble character? Are the things that we say that we believe and the things that we say that we won't do, are those things that we then go and do on a computer in the darkness? How is our noble character shown, and how are we showing it? Oswald Chambers says that the greatest test of a person's character is their tongue. Whew, right? And one of the questions is, how do we talk about people when they're not there? When we gather this afternoon for barbecues with family, how will we talk about the family members who don't gather for those barbecues? When we get to the water cooler at work tomorrow, how will we talk about our coworkers? As we send text messages, as we live in group chats, how do we talk about people? Do you ever stop to think that when you're with someone and the two of you have gotten in this frenzy and it's probably about another person and it's like, man, it's just so easy to speak negatively about other people when the two of us are gathered. And then you realize, wait, they're probably doing that when we're not together. And they're probably doing that about me. And I wonder if they think that I'm doing it about them, and because this is a part of our character now. And so how do we control our tongue? How do we speak words that lift people up? How do we be people of noble character? But it's not just our tongue, and it's not just the ways in which we interact on things on the screen. It happens in our everyday lives. And how do we show ourselves as people of noble character? When we go to work, do we take office supplies from our corporation because they're not going to miss them? Do we sneak a few extra things under our expense report because they don't really check everything? When we go to the restaurant, do we remind our kids, hey, you're 10 today? Okay? Because 10 and under eat free. I know you drove here. Inflation stuff, right? We just choose not to go out to eat. Here's another one, and this is the one that I've been trying to process in my life and process in the world today. How do we deal with artificial intelligence? Okay, in a world where, your math homework can be solved just by taking a picture, got it. In a world where we can post things and take credit for it, though we didn't create it nor write it. What does it look like for us to be people of noble character in the world of artificial intelligence? How do we deal with this? How do we process this? And I believe that this is going to have to continue to come up in our lives. Now, the good news is some of the things that are posted or some of the things that are created, it's so clearly artificial intelligence, no one would ever give you credit for it anyway. Right? You've seen those things, right? And there are other ones that it's like, I don't know which way that went. And in that moment, do I take credit for it? Yeah, I wrote that. I made that. I did that. Or is it, I had help with that? Or I don't know the answer to the artificial intelligence question. That's not what this whole message is about. But I do think as we become people of noble character, it's something we need to start processing as a community. It'd be good for us to talk about it in our life groups this week. Like, what does this look like at your place of work? What does this look like at school? What does it look like on your homework? What does it look like as you prepare? Like, what are the ways in which artificial intelligence can bless? And what are the ways in which it's robbing us of part of our character? So that's some of your homework. And don't chat GPT it, because that would be against everything I'm saying. And so here's the question this morning. What is your character like? Do you find yourself to be a person of noble character? Do you find yourself the same at home and in public? Are you the same when you're with people and when you're without people? Do you make good choices that are living true to the person that you want to be? And as we try to process what it means for us to be people of noble character, we are blessed to have the ability to read in our Bibles what the answer for us is. And what are the ways in which we can have better character? What are the ways in which we can grow as people of noble character? Galatians tells us that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And we think about our lives, don't we long for more of those things in our life? As we look at the world around us, doesn't the world long to have those things in it? In a world that's full of chaos and confusion, a world that tells us that character doesn't matter as long as you get what you want, what would it mean for our world to be filled of love and joy and peace and patience? Proverbs 31 tells us about the woman of noble character. It says that she works hard. She provides for her family. She's an astute businesswoman. But it also says that she fears the Lord. And as we long to be people of noble character, let us fear the Lord. Have a reverential awe of who He is and what He's doing in our lives. And one of my favorite passages, thinking about growing as the people of God, is in Philippians 4, where Paul tells us that whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure, whatever is good, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And so often in my life, I can find myself focusing on all the things that aren't those things. But it goes so much better for me and for those around me as I think about the good in my own life and I think about the good in their lives. We've often said that to place the crown above someone's head and let them grow into it. And then as we are people of noble character, that we can be trustworthy, that the Lord would entrust great things to us. Great things to us as individuals, great things to us as life groups, great things to us as a church family. And E. Stanley Jones says that character is supreme in life. Hence, Jesus stood supreme in the supreme thing. So supreme that when we think of the ideal, we do not add virtue to virtue, but we think of Jesus Christ, so that the standard of human life is no longer a code, but a character, and that person is Jesus. So what would it look like for us to live more like Jesus? And we see in our text throughout the last couple weeks that there's a lot of ways in which Ruth and Boaz and Naomi could have taken shortcuts to get where they wanted to go. But instead, they were people of noble character, and that the Lord provided and continued to provide. And we'll see how He provides even greater next week. So what would your life look like in your family if you were a family of noble character? What would our neighborhoods, our places of work, our communities, our schools, what would they look like if they were filled with people of noble character? And what would our world look like if we, the church, we, Chapel Springs, committed to being people of noble character, to rebuild walls that have been torn down, and to give the world the hope that it needs, and the redemptive arc would go from this room out into the world. As we close this morning, I'm going to invite you to stand. I'm just going to pray the benediction over you, the great priestly blessing from Numbers chapter 11. If you feel comfortable, you can hold your hands out in front of you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His face shine upon you, and may He turn His countenance towards you. And may He give you peace, shalom, as you live lives of noble character. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Be blessed, Chapel Springs. We'll see you next week as we look forward to the conclusion of our series in the book of Ruth. Fathers, don't forget to get your root beer and cookie. Everyone else, we'll see you at the Abide Retreat this Saturday.
Thank you so much for listening to the Chapel Springs Church podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on so you know exactly when we drop a new episode, which is every single week. And if you're new here and want to get more familiar with Chapel Springs Church, please visit our website at chapelsprings.org. Until next time, let's go live for Jesus.